Hi, it's Jo from Minerva. Today I'm going to share a little project with you on how to make a belt. It's really good if you can make your own belt because you can make your own size. So if you're particularly small or you're making one for a child, you can make one a specific size. If you're a plus size and you find it hard to buy a belt, then you can make your own. You can also use a matching fabric, which is how I started out making belts. So for example, on this dress, which is from a vintage pattern, I wanted to accentuate these darts here, and I didn't just want to leave it on its own. It's got front pockets, so I made a matching belt, and it's got eyelets and the belt buckle. And this one isn't very stiff. This has only got one layer of interfacing because it's just a dress one, but you can make them quite stiff and use them as jeans belts as well. And I'll show you how to do that today. This fabric is from Dashwood Studios. It's a cotton poplin, and it's really good for making structured items like shirts, skirts, shift dresses, because you wouldn't want to be gathering it too much, but it makes a really nice pleat, and that's the feature of this dress. So it irons well. I can still get a little gather on the sleeve without it being too puckered, and it's got darts, so it works well for that because it presses out really well. Today I'm going to show you how to make a belt that's quite firm, not a dress belt, so a jeans belt. And to make this you'll need some canvas fabric. This one is from Art Gallery Fabrics. You can see the canvas texture there. It's quite a firm fabric so that your belt will stand up inside the loops of your jeans. You'll need a belt buckle, and that will be linked below. And you need some eyelets to make the holes so that they last a long time. You will also need some interfacing to stiffen your belt, and how stiff you make your belt is up to you. All the products you need are listed below. The first thing you'll need to do is to measure yourself. So you're going to measure your belt length, and I'm going to show you a calculation for that now. First of all, you need to measure your waist. So you need to measure your waist and then add 30 centimetres, and that will be the length you cut for your belt. And this is to allow for the folds on the end, attaching it to a buckle. It allows for the seam allowance. And you must be careful that if you are wearing your jeans slightly lower and you're making a belt for trousers, that maybe your waist is a little bit higher and smaller. So think about where you're going to have your belt. Are you going to have it on your low waist, on your high waist? But you need to make sure you've got a waist measurement plus 30 centimetres. So my waist measurement is 94 centimetres plus 30 centimetres, 124 centimetres. So I need to cut a strip 124 centimetres long. This is now my pattern piece. So I've got seam allowance here, the outside of my belt folded over to the inside of my belt to the seam allowance that's going to join on the other side. And now I can cut out my fabric. So before we press ready to sew, you want to sew just across the end of your belt and down to make a neat finish. You can put a point there, you can put a curve there. I'm having a straight edge, but I want it to look neat before I do the turning of the belt. Okay, we're going to press a 1 centimetre seam allowance that we allowed for along the edge of our belt, and the more accurate that you are now, the straighter the edge of your belt. So use a seam gauge to make sure that you're getting that 1 centimetre seam allowance folded under as neatly as you can. You're going to do that on both sides, and then we can put in the interfacing. Now's the time for you to decide how stiff you want your belt. So art gallery canvas is quite a firm fabric, so you could just make it on its own and it would make a nice dress belt. If you want to make it for wearing with belt loops and trousers, you need to put a little bit of interfacing in. So you put your interfacing in now, and then you can fold it up and you can check that you've got your seam allowances level, and you're going to press that so you get a final press and you put the interfacing in all at the same time. We haven't done much sewing at all yet, have we? We've just done a lot of cutting and pressing and measuring. Apart from this little end that I asked you to do, because that means you've got a nice square end, and you just poke the interfacing down, it's fine. And you can see now I'm getting a nice end for my belt. I'm going to put a top stitching needle into my machine because I'm going through quite a few layers on my belt and I want it to go through smoothly. So it's our time to start sewing. It's our first bit of sewing on our belt. I'm going to pop my needle in. So there we are. That's the belt top stitched. So that's the finished look that you're going to get. And hopefully you could get a nice finish on the end. And now we're going to add our belt buckle. Now we're going to add the buckle. So I'm going to make a mark halfway between my top stitching line here and here, and I've allowed 4 centimeters here for joining the belt. If you want to make it a bit more to get it more comfy under machine, you can. And we're going to put our first eyelet in there. That's the fabric I'm going to attach to the belt. The hole is for the spike to come through, and that is how you attach your belt buckle. And then on the reverse you can fold that under and you can machine stitch or hand stitch. So that is how a belt buckle attaches. You need to make a little hole for the pin to go through and then sew. And the last thing to do is to decide where you want your holes. So you'll need to put your belt on and you'll need to measure where you want your hole. Then you'll need to put one before it and a couple after it and space them out. I'm going to show you how to use the eyelets and the eyelet tool, but my office desk is a little bit wobbly, so I'm going to take you over where I can use the hammer a little bit more firmly. So I've marked the holes, and there's a tool to first of all make a hole in the fabric, so you can see one there, and you put the circle underneath with the hole facing up. That flat shiny side goes down with this ringed part here. You put your mark over the top, and you've got to be careful because my first one slipped a little. So you're going to have your hole exactly over the top, and then you're going to use the other tool that's got a raised bump in the middle. You're going to put that on top. You're making a little sandwich, and then you're going to hit it with a hammer. And that makes a hole in the fabric ready to put the eyelet in. Up until now, we haven't had to have been careful about right side and wrong side. We've sewn all around, we've added our punched holes, but now we want to make sure that the front of our belt has the front eyelet piece showing, and the back of our belt has the thin reverse of the eyelet showing. So make sure before you start putting your eyelets on that you're using the right and the wrong side. This is my right side. From the right side, you're going to push through your eyelets that you want to show. I'm going to put those through, and then we're going to turn it over and then put the backs on. Finally, to finish the belt, you put the grooved disc on the bottom. You put your eyelet through the front, which we just did, and then that is going to sit on that little tool there. And then the eyelet goes on top with the groove. There's like a groove on the top and it's flat on the back. So the groove goes onto the eyelet, and then we use the same tool again. You've got to give it quite a firm tap. And that's your eyelet through your belt, and then you can repeat. There we are, that's your belt finished. You can put a little slider on if you want to stop the belt flopping down. I've put before now a press stud behind here, but my press studs won't go through this thick fabric today. But if I was making a dress one and I wanted it to sit neatly around my waist, I'd put a press stud on the back of there, one of the ones that's got a circle on so that it blends in with those. Okay. So if you're going to make a belt, you'll need some interfacing, a buckle, an eyelet pack, and of course you could use the rest of your material from the project that you're making, or you could splash out on something that you really like. And remember, we sell fabric in quite small increments now, so to make a belt, to order material especially to make a belt, wouldn't be unusual, because you can get it in a smaller amount. You're not going to have a metre of fabric left over. If you've made an item with a matching belt, we'd love to see it. We'd love to see your buckle choices, your fabric choices, how you've matched your eyelet to your buckles. Don't forget to post those on Minerva. You can do that if you have your own profile. So set up an account. You can have access to all of the sewing chat, fabric inspiration, sewing tutorials, and also you can upload your own makes for everybody in the sewing community to see. Thank you for watching. I hope that has helped inspire you to make a belt for one of your wardrobe superstars, or maybe an item that you've made in your wardrobe that isn't fitting very well, and making a belt from the piece of material that's left over might sort the problem out. So hopefully we'll see you again soon.